Before D-Day in 1944, HMS Belfast played two vital roles in the invasion and subsequent liberation of France. HMS Belfast opened fire at 5:30 a.m. on the 6th of June 1944, providing support to land troops by targeting German artillery positions as Green Howards, the 7th Battalion of the British Infantry, made their landings, supported by Canadian troops at the target beaches Juno and Gold. HMS Belfast flew the flag of the Rear Admiral during the D-Day operations as the headquarters ship. Communications were based from the ship, with the men operating radio from the wireless bridge office to direct troops and feedback information to London. HMS Belfast stayed in location for 5 weeks, firing nearly 2,000 rounds from her 6-inch guns until the landing forces had reached locations inland out of firing range from the ship. After D-Day, HMS Belfast saw action in Japan and Korea before being decommissioned in 1971 after various minor duties. The ship transferred to the Imperial War Museum and is moored on the River Thames by Tower Bridge, open to the public for tours.
I'm in part of the Bridge Wireless office. During World War II, this would have been a hive of activity. A lot of people that wouldn't have necessarily been seen as heroes, but this would have been the nerve centre of the D-Day landing, with messages coming in and out from other ships and land-based people. Now, as I look round, we have a telephone communication system on the wall here for sending messages. There's a lovely old Bakelite telephone on the desk here, which would have been used. Obviously, this is the mail room as well, this side, because there's pigeonholes, and for those of you who remember the old postman standing there sorting letters, this would have been pretty much what they did on the ship here. Telegrams, telexes, all those sort of things coming in, they would have certainly done that in this area. Each one of these desks, as I say, 14 people in this whole area that we're going to walk you through now. In the Bridge Wireless office here still, I managed to make my way down to the corner, and this piece of equipment I got my hand on the cover is a direction finding receiver. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with direction finding, if I point a directional antenna at a transmitter at the highest level of signal, that will give me a bearing. If another ship in the fleet also did the same, we would have another bearing. Where those two bearings cross would be where the enemy transmitter was. It could have been a submarine, it could have been land-based, but certainly this is a very, very early direction finding device. Nice signal meter here showing you where the peak of the signal is. Very interesting piece of equipment, obviously covered with a piece of perspex to stop people fingering all over it, but once again, very, very interesting. Guys, I'm still standing in the Bridge Wireless office. I'm standing next to a desk that the radio operators would have used. For those of you who can't see it, it's about 3 foot or 1 meter wide. It's got a number of features. It's a shelf at the top where the receiver would have sat, because in them days there weren't transceivers. You had separate transmitters and receivers. Below the shelf which the receiver would have been on is an area where the transmitter would have gone, so ideal area for there. And on the right hand side there's a couple of brass hinges and a small cutout. When that was flipped up, the Royal Naval Morse key would have sat below that, so if the operator needed to send Morse signals in communications via the transmitter, they would have used that particular key at that particular location. Now, to me, the desk is set up for a right-handed person. I think if you was a left-handed person, you'd have struggled very difficultly on this. However, very, very classic design, little drawer at the side, just to put your bits and pieces in, paper, pen, that sort of thing. And a very small working operating environment, which would need to be very, very much kept clean while you was at sea. I'm standing in front of some lovely old receivers. These are Murphy B41s, would have been put on board around about the late 50s, and in fairness, I regret never buying one when I had the opportunity in the 70s. They are a wonderful design. I guarantee they won't get thrown away very easy because they weigh about 60 kilograms or about 100 weight. Lovely piece of equipment. Unfortunately, at this point in time, these four don't work purely because they need renovating. You cannot switch on an old piece of equipment and just power them up. They would obviously have problems. But a beautiful piece of equipment. They are so well made. But the shame is, today, a cheap radio from, say, China that you can buy for £2 or £3 will do all that this will do and a lot more. But I'd still prefer one of these every day. Right, we're going to have a quick look around the shack at the BWO, Bridge Wireless office here on HMS Belfast. As you've seen, there are a number of these B41 receivers. This one I got my hands on actually works. It was restored at, I believe, RAF Duxford, which is also part of the Imperial War Museum, and sent down here by...
It was restored by David Coles, one of our members, who is really into the old radios. Did an excellent job on that one.
Yeah, so he has done an excellent job on this one. This one's actually a low frequency one. The reason it's a low frequency one is because it goes down much lower. So effectively the medium wave is at the top on this, and then you've got bands below that. Whereas on the standard ones, medium wave would be at the bottom, and then you go up to 30 megs. So this one doesn't go much above 2 megs in reality. Moving around a little bit further, we looked at the VHF UHF radio room downstairs. I spoke to an operator that served on the ship many months ago. This is effectively a VHF UHF transceiver or transmitter that was used in up to about 1962. It's a 20 channel, about 20 watt. So look at the size of it, phenomenal. I'm also told that this unit on the top here is actually an ATU. Why you'd need an ATU for UHF, I have no idea, but that's what I'm told it was. And the guys, when they were setting up the radios downstairs for operation, they would use this one to do all their calculations and testings first, and then they would make the UHF VHF radios downstairs online for actual operation. Moving along, and I don't know if the camera can get us in here, we talked earlier about transmitters and receivers. Unfortunately, transceivers as such didn't come into play until around about the mid-70s when the Japanese put the transmitter and receiver in one box. What you have in the corner is some very old transmitters of predominantly the World War II vintage. And moving up here slightly, and I'm getting Colin to move them down, these are the receivers that they would have used. Much older than the B41s we've been showing. I'm not 100% sure what this unit here is. I believe it's VHF or UHF, and there are lots of pieces of equipment that are on board ship from the time when she was in service, but very interesting to look at. These top and bottom units have small scopes in, and very interesting piece of equipment. And for those of you that are into data modes, this was one of the original data mode machines, a lovely old Creed teletype. I would guess this one circa late 40s, maybe early 50s, but certainly a interesting device, and data modes aren't something new. This little area in the corner here in the British Wireless office is an interesting device. It took me a while to look at, but it's actually a patch panel. I thought it was a telephone patch panel, but it's a patch panel where you can take a plug like this out. It's a multi-plug, and you could reattach it over here to patch in various parts of the ship. So if you needed to patch audio in, or you needed to patch a phone in somewhere, the idea is, as I'm told, it's a big switchboard, but not a simple switchboard. Everything like these plugs are drastically over-engineered, so with all the connectors on them. Massive things, but I suppose if you're at sea and you're being bounced around all over the place, or in a battle situation, you can't end up with little Mickey Mouse plugs that are going to get broken very easy while you're trying to put them into the socket. So great devices. They work very, very well, and that's what this is. Well, I'm sitting in the British Wireless office. I managed to find a seat. Earlier in the year, I was talking to Jorgen, who's standing next to me, and he was saying we're going to have a special event station, GB75 D-Day. What an opportunity for us to promote the British Wireless office, the Royal Naval Amateur Radio Society, and the Imperial War Museum all in one go. So it was a long time ago, wasn't it, Jorgen?
Yes, it was, but you know how it is. We have to plan, and we have to apply for this special call sign. You have to send in the application, you have to make sure that it happens, you have to follow up on it, but it came on the day. And we have it now for 28 days, since the 1st of June until the 28th of June. And we have now already been running it for 9 days. It's the 9th today. And it has been extremely successful already. I started out on the 1st of June running telegraphy, and it was just like it broke all the dams. It was the little Dutch boy who pulled the finger out of the dike, and everybody came in and wanted to talk to us. So I ran on telegraphy on the 1st of June, about 2 conversations per minute for a couple of hours, and you can calculate yourself how many that is. And it's quite interesting how the brain adapts to separate all these different calls that come in from Poland, from Czech Republic, from Russia, and wherever have you, mainly Europe. But in between, there was an American station, so I managed to fish that one out of it. But it's fun to run pile-ups, as we call them, and it concentrates the mind. I admire the people who can do that for the whole day, and there are people who do fantastic things in that way. I can do it for an hour, 2 hours, and then the brain goes haywire.
Yeah. Well, you're far luckier than I am, because I know you're multilingual. So having all these contacts over Europe, I think it's 5 languages you speak, isn't it?
5 or 6, thereabouts.
Yeah. So you're a much better advantage to me on that. Now, you got it for the whole month of June. Any expectation on how many contacts you're going to make with the special event station over that time?
Not really. What we try to do is to put it on as much as we can. But don't forget, we're volunteers, and it's our own time we come in. I have been in both the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd of June. I was in the 6th of June. And by the way, the 6th of June was extremely interesting. That, of course, is the day for the 75D Day. And I came in early in the morning. I couldn't be here at 5:30, which would have been the time when the ship opened fire. But I was here at 6:30, and I opened the telegraphy fire and had all these contacts in the first place. But the very interesting thing, I think, about this time is that every Friday I'm here with one of the old telegraphists who worked in this office 1962-63, Bernie Bristol, and he was a senior radio operator. So we have somebody who has actually been involved in the operation of HMS Belfast on the BWO, And he carried his, or he actually still does it in the month of June, he carries his brother's medals on the right-hand side of the chest. His brother died in a tank on the 27th of June, 1944. So out of respect to his brother, he has his medals on. And of course, Bernie can tell a lot of stories. So he and I interact in the way that I do the radio and basic history thing with the visitors, and he tells about his experience. That is history come alive.
Yeah, there's so much history that I've been fortunate to meet a few people of a senior age, and I'm no youngster myself, but some of the information, you really have to drag the information out of them, because they're proud, but they don't brag about it, and it's very interesting when you can get to talk to somebody like, you say, Bernie and some of the others I've spoken to get that information about. On the other thought, as you were saying, you were here at 6:30. Well, that's 5:30 UTC, so you might have been all right.
That is the question. Did they open fire 5:30 UTC, or did they open fire on the local time? Quite frankly, I don't know. I would guess that it would have been UTC.
Yeah, I would guess so, but we have poetic license.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, UTC, or Z as we also call it, that was used in the military. It still is, and we always use it in radio, because that tells it internationally for people in different time zones when we're on.
So the ship at the moment is running GB75D day, and I know a few of the other ICQ presenters are going to be here later in the month on a Saturday, and hopefully they'll get to operate. But as I say, listen out for the ship. If outside of the D-Day events, we operate as GB2RN, and excusing the phonetics, Great Britain to Royal Navy, I think the guys say, isn't it?
Yeah, normally, or we use the NATO phonetics, Golf Bravo 2 Radio November.
Yeah. So it's all good. So moving forward, and I know we have international listeners. I know at least one is going to come and join us later in the year on the Belfast. But for anybody who's visiting London, who's a radio amateur, what's the best days to come onto the Belfast?
We try to activate the station most days of the week, but as I said, we are volunteers, so we are sort of, I would say we have our own generals back home, and sometimes it doesn't really work, whether we want it or not. But I tend to be here every Friday together with Bernie Bristol, so that is a very safe day to come in. It's very few days we've not been able to be in the BWO. On Thursdays, we also have pretty steady operators between 10 and 2 in the afternoon. On Wednesdays sometimes, Monday sometimes, and I think we're trying to get, with some new members, we have also activity on Tuesdays. So basically throughout the week, weekends are rare, but it does happen. The best thing you can do is to go to the website on gb2rn.org.uk and have a look and see if there's any announcements. Or maybe send an email to one of the operators.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to kind of come round to. Check out, as I say, during the weekdays, there are likely, and I say likely, to be operators here. Outside of that, weekends are a bit patchy. However, you can either email the Bridge Wireless office via the website, or, as Jorgen says, drop the individual operator an email, or in our case, drop an email to info@ICQ Podcast and find out when, say, some of the ICQ presenters are here, because we try and get up here once a month and certainly try and put the ship on the air. Now, one of the most popular things of the whole Bridge Wireless office, and I think it's probably the most popular, is the public love to do Morse code. They really do, don't they?
Yes, indeed. We have a little Morse key, and we have a sheet with the Morse signs on, and the way that we grab the visitors is really to say to them, hello, have you come to learn the Morse code today? And if we don't do that, very often people just turn off and walk past. But that awakens their interest. That is when it's adults. When it's kids, they go straight to the Morse key and try to punch it. And then, of course, we tell them what it is, how it works, and they Morse their name. And, of course, the joy of us guessing, as they call it, guessing the name, is enormous. It is so popular, and it creates a lot of smiles, and very often it then generates stories about the visitors' parents, for example, or grandparents, who have been either aboard the ship or done a job in another part of the Navy. There was actually there was a very interesting or very funny thing happening last Friday. There was a young Italian woman and a guy who looked fairly reasonably young, and we had a nice conversation with them. They were very interested in the history and BWO and so on. And then we asked them, where did you two meet? And the girl said, it's my father. And then continued, we meet very early.
Don't you just hate it when people have got those useful looks that I haven't?
Yeah, we have these things all the time. Another one was a little girl of about 8 who did an excellent Morse code test on her first name. And then we said to the lady with her, and now let your mum try. And the mum said, I'm the grandmum.
Yeah. Now the big one I always get caught out on, and this will make you smile. I get somebody at the Bridge Wireless office hatch there about to do Morse code, and they speak German. So I say to them, what part of Germany are you from? And they look me in the face, 9 times out of 10 say Austria.
Yeah, that happens. But then again, Austrian and southern German accents or dialects are about the same. They're very singing. I think for the rest of Germany, it's difficult to hear for most of us where they come from.
Yeah. So all in all, I think this has been really good. We're going to do a few more stock photos in here and show the guys some various bits of equipment in here. But thanks for your time today and letting people know what you've been doing here and the D-Day event that's happening, the special event.
Yeah, you are very welcome. And we're very happy to have visitors here. So do try to call in if you're around and come and say hello to us.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And you may see me in an orange shirt today, but when I'm up here on Bridge Wireless office duties, I have my blue shirt with the same logo you've got on yours, apart from a different call sign. So we're all logoed up. Well, D-Day weekend 2019, the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landing. HMS Belfast was extremely busy on that D-Day landing, and what a different time we have here in London today. In fairness, this ship was not the first to fire. It was actually the second ship to fire. One other ship fired earlier, about 2 or 3 minutes earlier. There was a lot going on, a lot of technology on this ship, and hopefully we've given you a little bit of a feel for the technology in the background, because lots of people show the guns firing, lots of people talk about the landing, but this ship was actually the control center. The communications group were actually more involved with bringing the whole event to fruition, so they were controlling the whole lot from this ship. HMS Belfast stayed on service for about 5 weeks after the initial landing to support the troops that were going ashore, to bombard any emplacements that needed taking out, and she was very, very much involved in D-Day. So I am very lucky to be standing here today. In fairness, if it wasn't for HMS Belfast and their crew and a lot of other people, which at D-Day time, most of us probably wouldn't have been born or would not be living in the lifestyle we have today. So our thanks go out to the sailors and the troops that took part in D-Day landings.